Good evening, everybody. This is Yana Benun from Israeli News Live, and I welcome with me in our studio today Vincent Bruno. Hello, Vincent. Welcome.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me on.
Yes, we did have Bruno in the past, and we discussed Noahide laws. Bruno is a researcher and activist against Noahide laws. He has a website, stopnoahidelaw.blogspot.com, where you can find the most comprehensive, up-to-date information on everything that's going on around Noahide laws. Now, before we start, I just have to give a little bit of a disclaimer here. As you know, Vincent does not share our Christian faith. He's not a Christian. However, it doesn't mean that he does not have a great research in certain areas. Me as a Christian, I wish everybody came to Jesus as a Savior and the Messiah, but we know we don't live in a world where we all share the same faith and just basically just understand that Vincent, I'm very thankful that he was willing to come with us and share his research, his knowledge. Vincent, you, for the new people that never heard of Noahide laws, I would like to ask you if you could give a little bit of introduction, just kind of shorter than last time. What are Noahide laws and why are you so adamantly fighting against their implementation?
Um, so to describe the Noahide laws, I guess that you have to start in the question about, why does it matter? So this all started with a law that was passed in 1992, which stated that something called the Noahide laws are the foundation upon which the American civilization was founded. And it also promised that the United States would sign an international scroll, our president would sign an international scroll along with other heads of state, promising to use education and charity to return the world to the values and ethics of the Noahide laws. So the law never mentions what the Noahide laws are. So the Noahide laws are Jewish laws from the Babylonian Talmud that apply to non-Jews. It's from Jewish doctrine, but it prescribes laws for non-Jews who live outside the doctrine, and these laws are said to be mandatory. So there's 7 of them. They're called the 7 Noahide laws, and they are no idolatry. But this is the Jewish definition of idolatry. So it's not the Christian definition of idolatry. Whatever the Talmud and the Jews say is idolatry, and that oftentimes includes Christianity. So the prohibition against idolatry does apply to Christians who most of them believe in the Trinity and who worship Jesus as God, and that is viewed as idolatrous by Judaism. The second law is no blasphemy. Now, it's only blasphemy against the Jewish God. You can blaspheme other gods. And according to many interpretations, when Jesus said that he was the Son of God or the Messiah, or when he hung on the cross, that he blasphemed. So Christianity most usually breaks the first and second law of the Noahide laws. The third law regulates sexuality. So nothing outside of heterosexual marriage is anything permitted. So no adultery, no fornication, and no homosexuality. And but there are provisions for Jews. These laws are, well, I'll get into that later. Now, the fourth and fifth law, the fourth law is do not murder, but there's provisions in the law which allow Jews to murder non-Jews. The fifth law is do not steal, but Jews are allowed to steal from non-Jews. And then there's do not eat the limb from a living animal. Think about what happened here with the coronavirus, and she ate a bat alive, and that kind of stuff. That's what it prohibited in pagan cultures, many of them. And then the most important law is to set up laws of justice to enforce the 6 laws and to issue the death penalty for anyone who disobeys them. I hope, was that too long? Was that a long introduction?
No, it wasn't. We have a lot of people now that are new. We grew during this lockdown. We had about 20,000 new people, and some of them are not familiar with what are Noahide laws. They're not familiar with them. And during the 2 months lockdown, we didn't really touch on Noahide laws very much. We're kind of dealing with the situation as it came with the coronavirus and what that was all about, and still is. I don't think that's going away anytime soon. And so that's why I wanted you to do that, and you're doing great. You're really explaining it wonderfully. Most important thing for listeners to know is they are not biblical laws, although some Christian pastors who are for Noahide laws, believe it or not, we have this division in Christianity where some pastors who call themselves Christians support State of Israel, and they support Orthodox Jews and Talmud, and they say that these are actually biblical laws from the Old Testament, and then they use the book of Acts in the New Testament where they are combining it together, and they're trying to prove that these are just deducted laws from actual Christian Bible. This is absolutely not true, because these laws, as Vincent says, are Talmudic and are spelled out as 7 Noahide laws in the Talmud. Yes. And their punishment for violation of any of the Noahide laws is decapitation.
And they only apply to non-Jews. It's a separate legal system. Jews have their own legal system, and this is a separate kind of second-tier legal system for us. And you'll see there's a lot of inequality between Jews and non-Jews in this system. Like I said, that the prohibition against murder, a Jew can, under this system, murder a non-Jew, and there is no death penalty for it in this earth. And they can steal and there's no penalty for it. So there's lots of things. A male Jew can commit adultery with the wife of a Gentile, and that's not considered adultery. But if he does it to the wife of another Jew, it's considered adultery. So it's a two-tier system, and it specifically targets, it can't be biblical because it specifically targets non-Jews. There's nothing in the New Testament that says that this is the way non-Jews should live, and there's a different way that Jews should live, and Jews should have this superior status and that kind of stuff. It doesn't come from the Bible. It doesn't appear in the Bible. It comes from the Talmud, which was created many years later. So
and all non-Jews of all faiths should be worried, because it's not like they say that you cannot keep the name Christian or a name Muslim. You will be able to actually keep that name, but it will be regulated, right, Vincent? It will be regulated and fit into the Noahide system, how you can believe and how you can declare yourself a Christian. Am I correct?
Yes. What the plan is written down, that I've seen, is that they set up what's called a religious high council. So they would make a Christian high council, and a Buddhist high council, and a Hindu high council, and a Muslim high council. And they would take your religion and examine it. And what they do is they isolate the specific parts of your religion that break the Noahide code. So they go in and they just isolate what breaks it. And then what they try to do is they try to change your religion by removing what is not good under the Noahide code, what doesn't work for them. And if you have to insert something, then you insert that. The purpose of this is to keep the religion looking intact so that it looks like nothing has been done. And the people are fooled into, well, we can be Noahides and Christians, but you haven't noticed that your religion has been adulterated. And they've done this. They do it in Christianity. They do it in Hinduism. They've actually physically gone out and done this. I know they're working with pastors on this. Like one example is they probably would want you to give up the Trinity. and they would probably say, well, you can keep Jesus, but he's not a Trinity. And, there's people who are willing to entertain that for whatever reason. And
right. You can keep Jesus, but he's not God in flesh. He's not the God,
no,
in flesh. So, and if you can call that Christianity anymore, I really don't know. But so, why are you? Well, you are adamantly fighting against Noahide laws implementation. However, they are already implemented, so we would like to actually get them out of our system, right? They are in United States laws, and this is surprising to many people. So can you give us just a brief kind of historical introduction how they were implemented in United States, how in fact while we were on the lockdown on April 3rd, I believe, the Education Sharing Day USA was re-signed by our president, Donald Trump. So while all of this is going on with coronavirus, they have found a time to sign Education Sharing Day, which is signing of the Noahide laws, and this is happening on Schneerson's birthday. So can you just tell us a little briefly for the new people how it came into United States laws, and how last time you even told me, I think, that you found this in more than one public law. Is that true?
Yes. Well, what happened is that the law that, it was a very obscure law and no one had really heard of it, but it was on the books, was Public Law 102-14. And anyone who knew anything about Noahide law, the very few people back then who did know anything about Noahide law, it was because of Public Law 102-14. So Public Law 102-14 makes a lot of statements, one of which is that the Noahide laws are the foundation upon which the nation was founded. And again, that the president would sign an international scroll pledging to use education and charity to return the world to the ethics of the Noahide laws. There was other things that were in there as well. So I started the campaign against Public Law 102-14, and I carried that on for many years. And then one day I actually stumbled across another law that mentioned the Noahide laws, which is 103-14. And it makes different statements about the Noahide laws, but it makes similar statements to Public Law 102-14. And it's funny because at that time, I thought that's so strange that, I've been on this for so long. 102-14 was really obscure, but there's this other really, really obscure law that also mentions the Noahide laws. And I was like, it's kind of like a sleeper law or something like that. Like, if we got Public Law 102-14 out, they would still have 103-14, you know what I mean, legally. And I was just like, what if there's other sleeper laws out there? I started wondering. And, I can't say I was looking for it, but, I was doing research on the Noahide laws, and I got on the federal government's website, govinfo.gov, which is their information website. I looked it up, and there are no less than 7 laws and 2 proclamations which recognize the Noahide laws in the United States in some way, shape, or form. And they make different statements, and the different statements are important. And you can see how the laws progressed and how they are structuring it and how they're moving forward and how they're actually building this system. Because, their message is different with each law. So I want to go through those laws. I'm not going to read the whole laws out, but what I'm going to do, a lot of the laws are repetitive. So there's these 7 laws. A lot of the introduction is the same. Almost all of them, the introduction is the same. It makes the same statements. And then each law has a unique statement for the most part. And so I'm going to go through what they all have in common, and then I'm going to go through what they have that is unique. So the first law was Public Law 97-14. 97-166. And it was signed by President Ronald Reagan in 1982. And here's what it says. This is what it proclaims. The no-hide laws are the basis upon which the American nation was founded. Society is concerned with the weakening of the no-hide laws. The weakening of no-hide law threatens society. It is the nation's responsibility to educate the public on these no-hide laws. Now, those first four statements I just made appear in almost all of the next laws that we're going to go over. So I'm not going to, the next law that we go to, those same statements I just made are repeated in the law, but I'm not going to go over it because we've already said it. So what is unique to Public Law 97-166? This law has a unique clause. The public needs occasional reminder about the duties of the no-hide laws. And a National Day of Reflection is called to commemorate Rabbi Schneerson's work in promoting the ethics of the no-hide laws, April 4th, 1982. So then in 1987, Ronald Reagan again signed Public Law 100-25. And what was added was, without no-hide law, the nation stands in peril of chaos. They added the Lubavitch movement promotes the no-hide laws. Rabbi Schneerson's 85th birthday will be the beginning of a year of turn and return in which the USA turned to education to return the world to the ethics of the no-hide law, and Congress will designate April 10th, 1987 as Education Day USA to begin the year of turn and return. So that's important because here you see it says the USA will turn to education to return the world to the ethics of the no-hide laws. And you're going to see it didn't mention anything about the president or other heads of state, but it's a precursor to, you know, even bigger. The laws build on themselves. So keep that in mind. The turning toward, and the last thing it says is the turning toward education to return the world to the values of the no-hide laws. Oh, excuse me. It does will be reflected in an international scroll signed by the president and other heads of state. So this, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. They're saying in this law, they're introducing in this law, I believe for the first time, that this turn and return, using education to return the world to the no-hide laws will be signed in an international scroll by the United States president and other heads of state. Keep in mind, because in this law it says will, and you'll see in some laws it says has. So there's actually international scrolls that have already been signed, which we don't even know where those are or what they are. So Public Law 100-279 was signed in 1988 by President Ronald Reagan, and it adds Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson's 86th birthday will be a continuation. So it's a continuation of turn and return, in which the USA turns to education to return the world to the ethics of the no-hide law. So they're continuing this turn and return project. It says that the turning toward education to return the world to the values of the no-hide law, which is reflected in an international scroll, which has been signed by the president and other heads of state. So remember, in the law previous, it said the president of the United States will sign an international scroll, pledging with other heads of state to use education and charity to return the world to the ethics of the no-hide laws. Well, now they have. It says there is a scroll and it has been signed. So where is that scroll? What does it say? How much significance does it have? Who signed it? They're really big questions. So then Public Law 101-267 was signed in 1990 by George Bush. Now, the most famous law that first started the investigation was Public Law 102-14, which was also signed into law by George H.W. Bush. And so he was the most famous for signing these no-hide laws in. But he had another law that was like a secret law that no one had ever heard of. and it makes really important statements. So again, it says, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson's 88th birthday will be a continuation of Turn and Return, in which the USA turns to education to return the world to the ethics of the Noahide laws. So it's still continuing this continuous turn and return to return the world to the Noahide laws. And that Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson has ascended to the leadership of the guidance of world Jewry, which has been reflected in an international scroll, which has been signed by the president and other heads of state. So Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, this rabbi who promotes the Noahide laws of the Lubavitch movement, who, by the way, said that Gentiles have satanic souls, it has been reflected in an international scroll signed by the president and other heads of the state that this Rabbi Schneerson is the leadership of the guidance of world Jewry.
This is insane. Well, I will add at the end when you're done with those laws.
It's important to know because they're establishing him as a figurehead, because they're making him the most authoritative rabbi on the Noahide laws. So his dictates will be the strictures. There won't be any kind of fighting between Jews about whose Noahide laws are going to be applied. It will be his, and he wrote a lot about, and he talked about force, and he talked about a lot of stuff like that. So
yes, he definitely wanted to use force on Gentiles to enforce them.
Yes.
He even said no temple is needed to be up for their enforcement.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yes.
And then of course he is one of the most racist rabbis. His books were written in Hebrew. They were never translated in English until one of the Jewish chemists, and now I forgot his name. I forgot his name. I'm sorry. My brain has like anyway, it was one of the Jewish scholars, professors of Hebrew University. He was teaching chemistry. He decided to translate Schneerson's work into English for the first time, and what was found in Schneerson's book was shocking, because he was speaking about Gentiles as animals that needs to be managed, and Gentiles saying that souls of Gentiles and souls of Jews are two different species, and basically Jews are divine species and their souls originated in the divine spheres, while the Gentiles are subhuman species, and the souls of Gentiles originated in 3 satanic spheres. So this is who Schneerson is, and our presidents, United States presidents, are literally signing into our public laws his values as values of the United States that the United States was built on. This is insanity. This is not true. It's a lie. Okay, and then also they are recognizing leadership of guidance of world Jewry, like you were saying. And this international scroll that you're talking about, that must be something in United Nations. There must be, that international scroll must be in United Nations.
Now Public Law 102-14, which was the most famous, makes the statements that all the other laws do, but it talks about another new international scroll, which will be signed by the president and heads of state, pledging to use education and charity to return the world to the ethics of the Noahide laws. And has that been signed? Where is it? Is it in the works? So there's this second scroll that they've talked about. And why a second scroll? Why do they need a second scroll? It's odd. And then Public Law 103-14 is very different from all the other ones. It was signed by President Clinton in 1993. And it says the ethical teachings have found expression in the Noahide law. Education and sharing are the 2 pillars of the Noahide laws. Rabbi Schneerson has interpreted the increasing vitality of the Noahide laws in human understanding and betterment. Again, Rabbi Schneerson is now the authority. And so those are the 7 laws. There's 2 proclamations. I don't know how much weight they have. I'm not going to go into them now. But there's two proclamations as well, which were both signed by President Ronald Reagan, and they're both they promote the Noahide laws, and they make certain statements about how they apply to everyone and those kinds of things. So what went from one law went to two, went to seven, and you can see a story is being laid out. So what did they say? That it's the foundation, that we need to educate the populace about the Noahide laws, and that without them we're going to fall into chaos. And then they bring in the Lubavitch movement, and then they bring in Rabbi Schneerson and say he's the world leader. And then they sign an international scroll saying they're going to pledge use education and charity to return the world to the Noahide laws. Then they say they're going to sign another scroll. And then and then there's more, and there's proclamations. Like, we thought it was one law, but now we can see this is it spanned three presidencies.
Right.
And
then every president continued to honor Schneerson's birthday and keep reciting it with 10 rabbis around them. It was like 5 rabbis on one side, 5 rabbis on the other side. And they're year by year reciting them. There is no exception. Obama did it. Trump did it. And we know that Trump and Chabad are closely related. We know of Jared Kushner, his son-in-law, his daughter. She changed her Christianity to, Jewish religion. She became a Chabad.
She joined Schneerson sect.
Schneerson sect particularly, and she goes to particularly Schneerson's synagogue, Chabad synagogue.
Yes,
okay,
in Brooklyn. She went and visited his grave on the eve or something like that to pray for her father's victory before the vote. She went to his grave and prayed.
Yes, she did for the victory of Donald Trump. And so here we go. We thank you for bringing all this up, and thank you that you have found this, Vincent, because it's very concerning that this is like preparing of the foundation infrastructure, I would say, for future forcing or enforcement of these laws as they right now we can see during coronavirus so-called pandemic, which I call it pandemic. They are violating constitutional rights left and right in the name of public health. Okay, they're violating people's constitutional rights, and these Noahide laws are sitting there being resigned even this year by President Trump, which is extremely concerning. And on our Patreon, before the lockdown, we did a video with Steve. Steve, if you can find the name of the video so I can tell people if they go to our Patreon channel. But there was his 2016 meeting of Rabbi Cohen hosted a meeting of different kind of rabbis and world leaders, and it was a meeting about it was called a Noahide Conference. It was in United Nations.
When was this?
In 2016.
Okay, yeah.
Yes. And over there on this particular conference, he was saying that Noahide laws are going to be part of 2030 agenda, or agenda for 2030, which is a UN 2030 agenda.
We named it UN Delegation Planning Global 7 Noahide Laws. It was on March the 12th, 2020, that was loaded onto our Patreon
So again,
channel.
the name of video, UN Delegation Planning
Global 7 Noahide Laws.
7 Noahide laws.
UN Delegation
Planning
Global 7 Noahide Laws.
7 Noahide laws. Now,
seven
over there,
as a number or
did you
seven
write
as
it out, or did you
seven
write
as a
number
word?
7?
I wrote it out.
He wrote it out. 7. The word 7.
I don't know. Didn't show. But
It's on our Patreon.
What we
Okay.
can do is open it on
But what we
Vimeo
can
for
do,
Send
people
it
we
to
to
see
me.
it.
we can repost this on Israeli News Live for public to see, because
Yeah.
this is extremely important now. Because on that particular conference, they were saying how they have to start educating children from the cradle up, meaning even newborns, okay?
Yeah.
And now that they, coronavirus does not affect children. We had 0 death in children and youth. Yet they send them home from school, okay? They lock the schools up and study this teleschool. And even Cuomo in New York said that we don't need to come back to schools. We don't need to reopen schools. Not to mention what the guidelines for reopening are. It's like prisons now, literal prisons with social distancing, masks, and children cannot share anything and they cannot talk to each other. They cannot go to gym. They cannot go to library. So I have this feeling that they are redoing this education, and then these Noahide laws will be part of the religious part of New World Order, because it has economic part, political part, and religious part. And a lot of Christian leaders, they call themselves Christian, but I don't call them Christian, okay? To me, they're apostates, Christian apostates. They are planning this conference in September. And guess what the name of the conference is?
What?
The Return. The Return.
The return? Wait, they're Christian apostates that became Noahides, you said?
Well, no, but they are Christian leaders who refuse to speak against Noahide laws, who say Noahide laws are okay, there's nothing wrong, and if you criticize them, you are anti-Semite. And they're going to have this conference headed by Jonathan Kahn, and the name of conference is The Return.
The return?
Okay,
How
and-
did you hear about this?
Oh, from my friend Deanne Loper. She wrote a book, Kabbalah Secrets Christians Need to Know. Okay, I really highly recommend that everybody purchases this little book. It's very cheap. It's $9.99 on Amazon, and she gives a very brief but very to the point review of what the Kabbalah teachings are and how they're applying Kabbalah, Zohar, and Talmud prophecies to bring about their so-called Jewish kingdom. Okay, and this earthly Jewish kingdom, which to them they call it redemption, but to Jews the redemption is basically that they're going to get rule over the Gentiles, that the rule will be handed to them and they will be ruling over Gentiles. And this is why this particular conference with the name Return, they're not saying returning to Christ. They're talking that we are to return to Hebrew roots. We are to return, they're talking to Christian audience.
Yeah, because
calling them-
they believe that it's called the Noahide laws because they say in the Talmud it applied to Noah. It was given to Noah, these laws. So all of his descendants are supposed to follow these laws. So they're mandatory. And so supposedly, according to Jews, you were under Noahide law before you were under Christianity, and you're still obligated to follow the Noahide laws. And then the problem comes in because it's their definition of idolatry, blasphemy, and then they outlaw Christianity.
Right, and then when it comes, for example, to some of the sub-laws in Noahide laws, like when you mentioned that in a stealing, that they can steal from a non-Jew, the Jews can steal from a non-Jew because any property that non-Jew has is basically Jewish property.
Yeah.
That's what is in their Talmudic law. But if the non-Jew steals anything worth 1 penny, that is in a sub-law. 1 penny, or you are picking oranges for some company and you eat an orange, you already stole. Okay, if you didn't ask permission and you ate an orange that you're picking, or a picking tomato and you ate a tomato while you're picking it. Okay, so you are stealing, and you can be beheaded, and it says that you can be beheaded for if you steal anything worth 1 penny, or it doesn't matter how expensive it is. 1 penny is enough for beheading. So this is in their sub-laws. This is what kind of sub-laws they have, and they specified their sub-laws in their books that they are printing for the Gentiles today.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, they're publishing a lot more information, and they are trying to deceive people into accepting this and being in compliance with it. And they're trying to make it sound like it's not a big deal. They're not a problem. Nothing's going to happen. Um, and that couldn't be farther from the truth. It has a lot of power behind it. It's not just the Jews. As we've gone over in other videos, there are other entities which have signed on to these Noahide laws, one being the United Nations, the other being the Vatican, and they have a lot of help from Freemasonry. So, and they're also deceiving the Muslims. They're deceiving the Muslims and saying, well, you could be Noahide as well and practice Sharia. I don't, and then the Muslims are, promoting the Noahide laws. I don't know how this, how we'll interact. You know what I mean? And what would they instruct the Muslims to do with idolaters like Christians? You know what I mean?
Right, they can use them. They
Yeah.
can use them,
Yeah.
but also in a Freemasonry literature, Freemasons admitted that they are basically executioners. So they might be executing, the enforcement of these laws. And we know that a lot of clergy today are Freemasons, and a lot of police force is Freemasons, and even I just learned from some of our sources, even those who own ERs and hospitals are Freemasons, a lot of them. So a lot of areas are, they are basically infiltrated by Freemasons who cooperate with the Jewish laws, and they call themselves Noahides.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and then also Vatican, you mentioned United Nations signed on it. A lot of different faith leaders have signed on, but Vatican in 2007 have also signed on with the Jews.
Yes.
For the Noahide laws officially, in official document.
Yes. They've given it their signature of approval, the Vatican.
That's exactly right. So this is why Vincent is worried about it, and so am I. And we are wanting Christians to be aware of this, because that will require you to deny Jesus as God. They will require you to. You will not be able to worship Jesus, sing to him praises, pray to him, and all of this will be considered idolatry under Noahide laws.
Yes.
Vincent, do you have anything more to add to this?
No. There's a lot more about the Noahide laws. So if you're interested in learning more, like go to like you said in the beginning, my blog is stopnoahidelaw.blogspot.com. And what's most important, you'll see there on every single page is a petition on change.org to have all of these laws and proclamations repealed, all the laws that recognize the Noahide laws. So we need to get as many people to sign that as possible. It's directed at the U.S. Congress. And I just updated the text of the petition, so it is a lot more pronounced, and I've added all the different laws to it that need to be repealed. So we need to get that. So please sign that petition and share it. And that's about it.
Yes. How many people signed this petition already, Vincent?
Almost 1,200.
1,200. We need about how many 100,000 signatures?
Yeah.
We need to really put it out there. If you don't mind, send me a link directly to the petition.
I will.
So I can post it below the video. Now you look a little bit tired, and I am worrying. I'm worried that this is from the lockdown that you still have in New Jersey, right? Are you still on the lockdown?
It's hot in here, and I've been working, and
okay.
So but I'm fine.
You're fine. Okay,
Yeah.
that's good. That's good, because I know that lockdowns can have pretty negative. Isolation is no good. So you need air and sunshine, and take care of yourself. So. Definitely, we want to thank you, Steve and I, for all of your research.
Yes.
Again, his website, stopnoahidelaw.blogspot.com. blogspot.com. We will post a link. You will find very comprehensive information on Noahide laws from which year it starts. When did you start this?
Oh, I started this about 5-6 years ago.
Right, and you have all the proofs of everything about Noahide laws. I mean, when I was doing research on Noahide laws, I did it the hard way. Then I found your website, and that was such a help. And of course, I went and kept doing my own research as well, and we kept bringing it to people. But then your website was tremendous help because you kind of like put everything in one spot, and all the proofs and links are there. So you can start learning. Those of you who don't know what Noahide laws are and what kind of danger they pose to all non-Jews, doesn't matter if you're Christian or any other faith or atheist or anybody but Jew. Okay, what kind of danger it is to you to have these Noahide laws in our American law system. Okay, so thank you so much, Vincent, and hope we will be in touch.
Yes.
And Steve wants to say something. I'm sorry.
Just stay on when you don't let Vincent go yet. You guys go ahead and close out.
Okay, so we're gonna close out. Thank you for watching. Vincent, please don't go away. We wanna talk to you a little bit more. And thank you for watching this broadcast. Thank you for your support. Thank you for supporting Vincent's research as well. And you all have a good and blessed night.